Hello everyone. Today on Film Decoded, we're recapping the 2011 movie I Am Number 4. Let's jump into another great recap. The movie opens deep in the woods at night, because nothing good ever happens in broad daylight. Two men are hiding, clearly on edge. One of them hears a strange noise and does exactly what nobody should do in a horror movie. He goes to check it out. Spoiler alert, it doesn't end well. They're suddenly attacked by mysterious creatures. The young man known as Number 3 runs for his life, but his fate has already been sealed. The Mogadorian commander appears, tears the pendant from his neck, and executes him without a second thought. Number 3 dissolves into thin air as if he never existed. The commander, who clearly has a disturbing habit of collecting trophies, adds the pendant to his collection. It's obvious this boy wasn't the first, and he certainly won't be the last. The scene then shifts to John Smith, also known as Number 4, living what seems like the perfect life, enjoying the ocean with his friends. But, of course, happiness never lasts long. That night, while swimming beside a beautiful girl, his leg suddenly starts glowing like a broken Christmas tree. The pain is unbearable, and he cries out in agony. To make matters even worse, he experiences a vision of Number 3, who delivers one final warning before disappearing forever. Get ready. Things are about to get a whole lot worse. And since the internet never misses an opportunity, someone records the entire incident, instantly earning John the title of the town's official weirdo. The following morning, he wakes up on the beach beside Henry, his guardian and the only person who truly understands how serious the situation is. Number 3 and John aren't ordinary teenagers. They possess extraordinary powers, and each of them has a protector whose sole mission is to keep them alive. When Henry notices the glowing mark on John's leg, he immediately understands what it means. Number 3 has been killed, which makes John the next target. Without wasting a second, Henry destroys every photograph and erases every trace of John's existence before they flee in their car. During the drive, John briefly explains his far-from-normal past. He and 8 other gifted children escaped from the planet Lorien after the Mogadorians, or simply the Mogs, those evil bald aliens, invaded their world and destroyed everything. Ever since then, the Mogs have hunted the survivors one by one. The Mogadorians are bound by a very specific order when hunting them down, and, unfortunately, John is next on the list. The glowing scars on his leg confirm that numbers 1, 2, and 3 are already gone. Definitely not the kind of news anyone wants to hear. Henry does what any responsible mentor would do. He gives John a new identity and warns him to stay hidden at all costs. They move into an old, quiet house in Paradise, Ohio. It seems like a safe place, until John notices a small lizard following him around. Totally normal, right? While Henry works on wiping away every trace of John's digital footprint, goodbye social media, goodbye normal life, that little lizard suddenly decides to evolve into a dog. Because apparently, this movie has absolutely no limits. John, who clearly has a soft spot for stray dogs, decides to adopt him and names him Bernie. Henry objects, but John insists. He's just a dog. What's the big deal? Spoiler, he's definitely not just a dog. Later that night, Henry secretly hides a mysterious chest inside an old grandfather clock without John noticing. It's a final gift from John's father, but with one important condition. It can only be opened when the time is right. Nothing suspicious about that. Meanwhile, Number 6 arrives at the cabin where John had been staying. Finding it abandoned, she simply sets the entire place on fire. Apparently that's standard procedure. After a massive explosion, she calmly walks out completely unharmed, proving she's completely fireproof. The next morning, John decides that staying hidden is boring and insists on going to school. He promises he'll keep a low profile, as if that's actually possible. Against his better judgment, Henry finally gives in and hands him a cell phone. As soon as John arrives, he discovers that Bernie followed him there. A great start for someone trying not to attract attention. While waiting for class to begin, he notices Sarah sitting outside the principal's office after secretly taking pictures of one of her teachers. She clearly has a talent for getting herself into trouble, and for some reason, John finds that pretty attractive. The school assigns Sarah to show John around campus. Henry calls to check if everything is going smoothly, but John, being John, ignores the call. That's when Mark and his friends make their entrance, filling the mandatory role of the school's bullies. After introducing himself, Mark goes back to his favorite hobby, making someone else's life miserable. This time, his target is a boy named Sam, whose skateboard he casually throws across the schoolyard. Tired of watching this kind of behavior, John picks up the skateboard, returns it to Sam, and the two quickly become friends. After school, John notices that Mark still isn't done picking on Sam. This time, he decides to step in. Grabbing a football, he launches it straight at one of Mark's friends, knocking him flat on the ground. Not exactly subtle, but definitely effective. Meanwhile, John realizes that Sarah has been casually taking pictures of him from a distance. A little stalkerish, maybe, but he doesn't seem to mind. Later that night, John discovers Sarah's photography website, and, to his surprise, she has an entire gallery dedicated to pictures of him. Romantic or creepy? Hard to say. Henry, however, doesn't find any of it charming. He immediately deletes every single photo. The fewer traces John leaves behind, the harder he'll be to find. Speaking of being hunted, the Mogadorians aren't fools. They eventually discover the burned-down cabin. The conclusion is obvious. Number 4 is still alive. The next day, right in the middle of class, John realizes he has a small problem. His hands suddenly begin glowing like a neon nightclub. His lumen has finally awakened, with absolutely terrible timing. Henry immediately senses that something is wrong after noticing the clock glowing and heads straight for the school. Meanwhile, John panics and hides inside the janitor's closet, desperately trying to turn the lights in his hands off, as if they had an on and off switch. No luck. Henry arrives and explains the obvious. There's no way to shut them off. The glowing means his powers are finally beginning to emerge. Now he has to learn how to control them before he accidentally blows something, or someone, up. Back at the house, Henry lays down the rules. No more school until John learns to control his new abilities. Naturally, John isn't thrilled with the idea, but he decides to test the limits of his newfound powers. He starts small by showing them to Bernie, the dog who's definitely not just a dog. Then he steps outside and throws a rock so far it might have punched a hole through the ozone layer. Soon afterward, he discovers he can leap like a comic book superhero. Meanwhile, on the other side of the story, the Mogadorian commander is busy shopping. He clears out an entire supermarket to feed his gigantic and rather disturbing creatures. At the same time, John happens to run into Sarah in town, and with nothing better to do, the two decide to go for a walk together. During their stroll, they spot Sam and his stepfather across the street, but nobody seems interested in an awkward family reunion, so they simply keep walking. Sarah invites John over for dinner, and he gladly accepts. There, he meets her parents, who casually mention that Sarah is obsessed with photography and suggest they visit the town's nighttime spring festival. After dinner, they head up to Sarah's room, where John discovers something surprising. Even though she's passionate about taking pictures, she absolutely hates having her own photo taken. Pretty ironic, isn't it? Before they can talk about it any further, Bernie ruins the moment by appearing outside the window and barking nonstop. John has no choice but to go calm him down. However, he isn't the only one paying attention. Mark, the school bully, watches everything from a distance, burning with jealousy. The following day, Sam asks John what happened with his glowing hands during class. John, being John, brushes the question aside. Suddenly, both of their lockers explode with pink paint, courtesy of Mark. Even worse, the paint ruins an important photograph of Sam with his biological father. That's enough to make Sam lose his temper and charge straight at the bully. As chaos unfolds around them, John's hands begin glowing again. This time, however, he manages to stay calm and walks away before the hallway turns into a full-blown light show. He hides in the restroom, where Sam finally tells him the truth about his father. He was obsessed with aliens before mysteriously disappearing without a trace. Sam firmly believes he was abducted. Knowing what he knows, John doesn't find the story hard to believe, but he also chooses not to say too much. Later, John notices Sarah in the hallway but decides to ignore her. Meanwhile, Henry is busy investigating Sam's father's disappearance. Following a lead, he arrives at an abandoned factory, where he discovers strange symbols carved into a concrete pillar and a glowing stone resting on the ground, known as a locator. With a name like that, it's obviously much more than just an ordinary rock. He takes it home to study it more carefully. Meanwhile, John receives an invitation from Sarah to attend the spring festival. As if hiding from murderous alien hunters wasn't already enough to worry about, he happily accepts. During the festival, Sarah finally opens up about her past. She and Mark used to date, and after they broke up, he made sure everyone learned her most personal secrets. Quite the gentleman. The two of them then climb aboard one of those spooky carriage rides through the woods, because nothing says smart decision-making like wandering into the middle of a dark forest while deadly aliens are hunting you. When they arrive at an area known as Hell's Gate, John and Sarah discover the hard way that Mark hasn't gotten over the breakup. He and his friends ambush John, beating him up while another one of the bullies drags Sarah away to Mark. Hidden nearby, Sam witnesses everything unfold. Realizing he doesn't want to spend the night as a punching bag, John finally decides to use his powers. He quickly turns the fight around, rescues Sarah, and in the heat of the moment nearly breaks Max's arm, one of the attackers. After taking Sarah home, John kisses her. Considering how the night went, that's a pretty decent ending. But the adrenaline is still running high. As he walks past the streetlight, he accidentally shatters the bulb with his power. Great. Now, besides being an intergalactic fugitive, he can probably be charged with public vandalism as well. Later, he visits Sam and tells him the whole truth. Sam finally learns that his father was right all along. Aliens really do exist, and John is living proof. But the revelation comes with a warning. If Sam tells anyone, he'll put himself in terrible danger. Loyal as ever, Sam promises to keep the secret. The following day, things get even worse. The town sheriff, who also happens to be Mark's father, shows up at John's house accusing him of attacking his son. John calmly denies everything, knowing they don't have enough evidence to arrest him. I guess this version of John has never been to Brazil. Watching from the sidelines, Henry can't help but feel proud. John is finally growing into both his physical abilities and his emotional strength. But the peace doesn't last long. A video of John glowing in the ocean goes viral, and Henry immediately realizes they're running out of time. He urges John to leave immediately, but now completely in love with Sarah, John refuses to run. Their argument quickly escalates until Henry is suddenly kidnapped. With no other choice, John races against the clock to rescue him. Alongside Sam, he follows the directions to the location. Once they arrive, John gives Sam one simple job: follow the suspicious man while he sneaks inside the house. There, they discover piles of newspaper clippings about missing people. At the very end of the room, they finally find Henry tied up. The kidnappers turn out to be conspiracy theorists who, to make matters even worse, have been working for the Mogadorians all along. Before anyone has a chance to react, a Mogadorian storms into the house and attacks. John and Sam try to escape, but Henry chooses to stand his ground and fight the alien. During the chaos, Sam loses the car keys, so John does what anyone with superpowers would do. He starts the vehicle using his own energy. It looks like they're finally going to escape, until the Mogadorian catches up and drives a blade straight through Henry's chest without hesitation. Knowing he doesn't have much time left, Henry hands John a special chest along with a tracking device. Before taking his final breath, he gives him one last piece of advice: find the others like you. Together, they can defeat the Mogadorian. Otherwise, there is no plan B. The Mogadorians, on the other hand, don't handle failure very well. Since they couldn't capture John, they decide to take out their frustration on the conspiracy theorists who helped them. Their punishment is swift execution with a deadly weapon. Meanwhile, the police, who clearly have their priorities in a very strange order, storm John's house and decide he's a terrorist. No evidence, no explanation, just a convenient accusation. Then Sam reveals something completely unexpected. He has another fragment of the mysterious stone his father found in Mexico while searching for alien. Because, of course, things like that only show up when everything has already descended into chaos. While Sam heads off to find Bernie, who somehow knows exactly where the stone is hidden, John decides to take one last risk and visits Sarah's house to say goodbye. But before he can leave, the police arrive, trapping both of them on the roof. To make matters worse, Sarah loses her footing and falls. Fortunately, John uses his telekinesis to save her at the very last second. The display of superpowers isn't over yet. When a police car blocks their escape, John simply lifts it into the air with his telekinesis and moves it aside as if it were a toy. While the officers are still trying to figure out what on earth just happened, John and Sarah flee to the school. It's not exactly a great plan, but at that moment, it's the only one they have. Unfortunately, the school is anything but a safe haven. The Mogs arrive in a convoy of trucks and immediately get down to business, forcing Mark to lead them straight to John. Left with no real choice, Mark complies. Realizing they're completely surrounded, Sam warns John. But before anyone can react, number 6, or Jane, for those who know her, makes her entrance, and she's definitely not here to play around. The battle begins. With her incredible abilities, Jane takes down 2 Mogadorians before they even realize what hit them. But the enemies have a few tricks of their own. They release their deadly jumping beast. That's when Bernie finally reveals his true identity. The adorable dog transforms into a terrifying creature, scaring Sam half to death. Thankfully, the panic doesn't last long. Bernie isn't the enemy, but the battle is far from over. Chaos erupts throughout the school, and there's no escaping it now. Bernie charges into the fight, taking on one of the flying beasts in a brutal clash. In the end, the alien monster falls, but Bernie is left badly wounded, returning to his familiar golden retriever form. Meanwhile, Jane is in serious trouble. Exhausted and cornered, she tells John to recharge her using his lumen. Without hesitating, he does exactly that, and together they return to the fight stronger than ever, taking down even more Mogadorian. But the battle still isn't over. John, Jane, and Sam race onto the football field, where the villains have prepared their grand finale. Waiting for them are the Mogadorian commander and his monstrous pet. This time, John and Jane waste no time. Combining their powers, they eliminate the remaining guards within seconds and come incredibly close to killing the commander. Almost. The problem is that Jane is captured in the process as the monster grabs hold of her. John reacts immediately, using a light pole as a weapon to bring the beast crashing down. Then comes the decisive moment. Number 4 unleashes a massive blast that finally destroys the Mogadorian commander. The only reason they survive the enormous explosion is because Jane, besides being deadly in combat, is completely fireproof, an incredibly useful ability for moments like this. The following day, they finally connect the blue stones and discover the locations of the remaining Lorik children. Their mission is far from over. Suddenly, Mark appears out of nowhere. Apparently, The school's former bully has decided to switch sides and hands John the mysterious chest Henry left behind. What's inside? Well, that will have to wait. Without a second thought, Sam joins the group. John, meanwhile, says goodbye to Sarah with one final kiss, because every great escape deserves a memorable romantic moment. Then, as if on cue, the injured Bernie suddenly appears, because it just wouldn't be Bernie without perfect dramatic timing. With no time left to waste, they leave town together, ready for whatever adventure comes next. I Am Number 4 received a mixed reception on Rotten Tomatoes, earning just a 32% score from critics, which basically means they weren't convinced by the idea of teenage aliens running from murderous bald extraterrestrials. Audiences, however, were a bit more forgiving, giving it a 57% approval rating, perhaps because of its entertainment value, or maybe because it feels like Twilight with superpowers. I Am Number 4 blends science fiction with teenage action, delivering some entertaining fight scenes and solid visual effects. The chemistry among the main cast works well, and Teresa Palmer steals nearly every scene as number 6, bringing exactly the energy the movie needed. The biggest weakness is that the story never spends enough time developing its character. Instead, it follows the familiar formula of a chosen hero constantly running from danger while juggling a high school romance. The villain is fairly generic, and the world building remains surprisingly shallow. That helps explain the lukewarm reception, and why the planned sequel never happened. One interesting fact is that Alex Pettyfer, who plays John, turned down the role of Jace Wayland in The Mortal Instruments to star in this film. Looking back now, that may not have been the best career decision. Even so, the movie is entertaining, features enjoyable action sequences, and has a few memorable moments. It just never fully lives up to its potential.